If you're speaking to the others out there that are having to work with their spouse, what advice would you give them?
Sometimes the hardest step is asking for help.
Take us through how you instituted a mystery shopper program in a construction company.
We got a lot of great feedback because
What have you done different than Will has done to make it a success?
Will saw the best of people when the people didn't see the best of themselves.
What would be the top 3 books you'd recommend for leadership or business?
The top 3 books for me are
How many people do you have on the leadership team, and what's the makeup of it?
Vesta's made a name for herself. I don't have to prove myself every time I walk into a room.
What were the big breakthroughs that you created in your team?
I think the very first thing we need to remember is...
Hey, everybody, this is an important episode. Listen, in most construction companies, I know how it goes. You're probably working with your spouse. And today's going to be a really important episode because our guest today is actually going to be my lovely wife, Sydney, that we have worked together for 18 years of our 21 years of marriage. And boy, it's tough sometimes. But I love getting her insights on how we've navigated that as a couple, but also the levels that she has taken our business. So I hope you really enjoy this episode, and we look forward to keeping you guys informed on all the cool stuff going on in construction. See ya.
Welcome to Beers with Contractors.
All right, tradies, another episode of Beers with Contractors. Terry, cheers to you, sir.
Cheers, Will.
You got your double barrel right there next to you for your refills, so you're cranking. You are prepared today.
Anna.
Terry, you even brought food. You're a good lad. Good guy. I don't care what everybody says about you.
Got to come in clutch every now and then.
Yeah, well, always good before digesting a few beers. It's like, yeah, eating lunch should probably be a good thing. But yeah, all of you out there, all 7 of you listening now, like, subscribe, hit that notification button. Just like all those little kids talk about in those Minecraft videos and things like that. So, very special episode today, Terry, and I know you giggled with glee when you heard about our guest. Why did you get so anticipated of today's guest?
Because she is able, am I giving someone away? To bring a perspective about working with you that few people really understand.
Hopefully a good perspective.
No, it's just a perspective. It doesn't have to be good.
Well, I, for one, am very nervous about today's episode because I know that when you two get locked in a room, you guys can throw some serious shade and talk some serious shit to me.
Yep.
And I'm hoping I don't get cornered, but I pay the producers, so I can get the mics down and edits the way I see fit. That's the control I get of being the humble podcast host of Beers with Contractors. So let's get to it. Let's see just how brutal this gets today. So our guest today is the esteemed CEO of Vesta Foundation Solutions. Been in the business 18 years, but has been running Vesta Foundation Solutions now for 8. Along my side, and doing a way better job pushing me away from the business. Currently has a management team of 7 people and employees over 60 and generating over $12 million in revenue. Our esteemed great guest and a returning guest was a guest on our first episode ever, Sydney Blake of Vesta Foundation Solutions. Welcome to the podcast, honey.
Thank you, darling.
All right. So, Terry, first jab. Go ahead.
The level of cuteness is just distracting me right now. My mind's a blank.
Yeah.
Thankfully, you've never greeted any other guest like that.
Oh, yeah. Like,
Hi, honey.
I never, hold on. I never introduced a guest like, hey, honey.
Yeah, no. Completely better. So,
all right. So, Sid, I know a lot of people were like, who the hell is this? Take us through the history. Obviously, not all the way back to our high school days, but your professional history of us working together, so everybody kind of knows what your role is and what you do in the day-to-day. Then I'm going to poke holes in it and see if she's
I was going to say, you're just going to talk after me and say everything I did wrong.
Oh, shots fired. There's the first one. There's one down. Go ahead.
All right. So, goodness. I guess we do have to start way back in the beginning. So Will and I just celebrated 21 years of marriage, and I'm very thankful for him in my life. And then as far as construction and foundation repair being my career, that really started in 2009. Will had already started working in the crawl space encapsulation business. I knew about building. I helped my father do home inspections and grew up with him as a contractor, just like Will did. And then I came on their first office person and took an incredibly spread out administrative office. Will took calls on the road, did payroll at night in our house, and I was their first office person. So I had to kind of centralize everything, did everything from booking appointments to scheduling jobs to payroll, accounts receivable, and had to learn every step of the way. I didn't really have any background in that. And then through the years, we worked at different foundation repair companies across the country. And then we decided to move to Oklahoma and open up our own. And it was actually wonderful because Will's strengths in marketing and sales, mine is administrative and running the business. And Adam, Will's brother, was the installer, very heavy production knowledge. And so the three of us started Vesta. And now we have a team that does everything, and they do it better than we can most times.
No,
And
don't tell it. No, 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 no. We are the best at everything, right? We set the bar. Hey, now, Terry, you know the secret to having a 21-year marriage. How many years you and Carrie been married, Terry?
We just celebrated 15. Actually, last week.
15.
This week. Yeah,
you might want to
15.
check on that for there to
I
be
was gonna
16
say.
years.
And now it's documented. So we hope that Carrie doesn't listen to the podcast.
I got the day right, the day of.
Oh, okay. That's all that matters.
No, what is truly amazing, Sydney, for me is me and Carrie will work side by side when we're remodeling or doing something. And I know how that goes, right? And thankfully she hasn't, hit me too much where it shows. But I don't know how you could work with Will day in, day out for that many years and still not strangle him.
Well, hold on. Let's back up a little bit, Terry. She hasn't hit you in anything, but I think I remember 2 months ago that you were mysteriously hit in the head with a piece of plaster on one of your properties.
Yes.
Are you sure that wasn't Carrie?
She might have set a trap, but other than she was not present or on the site when that accident happened.
Well, Sydney, you know this because we work with, and I get asked this question all the time from my consultancy customers. Most construction companies, especially when they're smaller, they're made up of spouses, right?
Hey.
And there's a whole lot of bullshit that comes with that. Unfortunately, no matter how hard you try, you drag the work conversations to the dinner table. I have a perspective, but if you're speaking to the others out there that are having to work with their spouse, what advice would you give them?
I would actually like to hear your perspective first.
Don't you put that evil on me, Ricky Bobby. Okay. Actually, I think this is great. I will answer the question, and Drake will give me a good edit on this for our short form content.
Okay.
So I think it's very clear to be, if you're going to work together as a spouse, you got to be on the same page before you address anybody on your team, including customers. Because if you're getting two different perspectives as a husband and spouse, and it's kind of like watching mommy and daddy fight at the dinner table to your team. And there's been a few times where we have a very strong disagreement, and we view it as a tiny little crack, but they're looking at it as a massive canyon. And we're just like, yeah, we just have a little spat and we're good. We walk out the door happy. Everything's good. Life is good. They're thinking, oh my God, are they going to get a divorce? Like, oh my God, what do we do? So now I get to hear from your perspective.
So something I learned, like if I could go back to those days we first started working together, I don't think we were good at setting boundaries. And that's boundaries around decision-making within the business. Like you said, making sure we're on the same page before we take anything to the team. We got better at that towards the later years, but also boundaries like not talking about work after a certain time when you get home, making sure the priorities that you have are the same that I have. And, because like our boys both grew up in different ages with us working together. So Troy was a little bit older when you and I started working together. Very different perspective from his viewpoint. And then with Evan, we were both working, but just making sure that we make time for them because Vesta for a very long time was like our third child. And it was the baby that got all the attention when we first started it. And I think that would actually be really interesting to hear Troy and Evan's perspective of parents working in the business,
Yeah, put a beer in their hand,
because
bring them
they're the
on.
ones that are
You
going to
know,
need therapy later on. So,
I mean, it is funny you mentioned that though, because Terry, have you ever been to these like facilities where it's like this place has been accident free for so many days? Like it's almost as if like if you could walk into our house, we should have a sign that says this kitchen has been business free talk for 0 days.
Right.
Like it just happens.
Well, I think I'm thinking of both you, Will, and Sydney grew up working with your parents in the industry, right? And so did I, right? And the fact of that matter is my two girls, and my expectation is your kids have tagged along to the warehouse, come on job sites, been around it, right? And I don't think any of us or my wife would want our kids raised any other way. I mean, it gives those kids a lot more than that kid who's just being left at home with an iPad or a screen in front of them, right?
Yeah. Was there a question in there, Terry?
Well, yes. When I say right, question mark. I mean, would you change the way you raised your kids? Looking back on it,
Yeah, I would like to hear your answer on this, Sydney.
Will, would you change that?
no, I'll answer
yeah.
that first. Because, yeah, both of our parents were entrepreneurs in construction. Mine was more construction adjacent, whereas Will's was general contracting. That's the only thing I knew was parents being able to make their own hours. My dad coached, basketball for my sister and I, would always pick us up from school, take us and to places. So there was a freedom that we had with our parents as well. So sometimes us as parents feel like we fail all the time because we're thinking we should do more. But also, I think our children, there were benefits to seeing us own our own business and the freedoms that came around that, that I wouldn't change anything other than making sure, I think more times I didn't bring work home. I think Vesta would have been just as successful, and there just could have been some ways that I limited how much I brought it home, but I wouldn't really change anything. And I don't think the boys would either. And I mean, Troy's successful. I mean, so
Yeah. Yeah, Terry, I think we've talked about this. Like our first son got very little bit of our attention because we were always working, right? And it's like, here's a Spider-Man video. Watch this over and over.
well,
and over
hold
again.
on. To be clear, Troy got attention with just me up until I started working. So
Yeah. Well, you had always worked, but but anyway,
yeah,
he didn't get a lot of my attention. He ended up great.
yeah, that's
There we go.
there we go.
But the youngest one got a lot of my attention, and he's a jerk. He's kind of a jerk, but he's got good leadership skills. He's headstrong. But this is interesting because I find this with a lot of business owners, and Sydney, and I'd like your take, especially when they're spouses, is you have the husband and wife, and naturally power or decision-making funnels to the male in the relationship because that's the more masculine dominant individual. But I have found that women make way better business leaders in a larger organization, but it's typically wrapped in this shroud of imposter syndrome. So if there's somebody, and I think of like Alyssa Toro is a good client of ours out of Raleigh, North Carolina, runs her business with $3.5 million. She is rock star, but she has her own struggles. So what pieces of advice would you give to one of the spouses out there or a woman in business about, hey, I'm taking the wheel here, all challenges on, and trying to navigate that journey in leadership?
So it's funny that you bring that up because that was actually our podcast topic, that first episode, because I think I had a different answer than I would say now. I think the very first thing we need to remember is imposter syndrome isn't just dominantly, like, well, it may be dominantly female. Men suffer from it just as much as women. And I think us making it a female only problem is very limiting to male business owners and leaders, because imposter syndrome is us knowing our weaknesses. And so for females, specifically in construction, there is an inherent belief that women don't know what we're talking about. And it's actually also very fulfilling to stand up for myself in those environments, which are very, very small, to be clear. Like, I do not have the same battles that I had when I first started in construction.
I will tell you a funny story, Terry, that kind of dovetails along this. is I remember there was an employee that came in, a candidate that we were going to hire, and this individual blew right past Sydney and
No,
was
that
like,
was Cintas. That wasn't a candidate.
"Oh, that was Centos, the uniform company," and they came
Mhm.
right to me, like I'm the decision maker, and I'm like, "Who the fuck are you? You're talking to the wrong dude. Like I don't know anything about anything. That's the lady that makes the decision." That was the solicitor, wasn't it? That
Yeah,
came in.
okay. Yeah, that was a solicitor. I apologize. That wasn't so Cintas. At this time, we had a branch manager in OKC, and I walk in, and he's sitting there waiting, and I said, "Can I help you?" And he goes, "No, I'm waiting for him," and pointed to the branch manager. And I said, "Okay," and I went back to my office, and finally, the branch manager came out like 30 minutes later, and the Centos rep goes, "I just want to talk to you about, I'm your new rep, and I just want to talk to you about the contract and all the services." And he's like, "Well, you need to talk to her." And he had blown me off thinking I didn't.
Yeah.
I'm like,
I forgot about that. It's
yeah.
hysterical. Like he missed his chance to make a really good sale and blew off the one decision maker that writes all the checks. So that just
It's,
I mean, I don't know, Sydney, because my wife, Carrie's been in construction for 15 years, right? And she does, she's a project manager, commercial construction, multi-million dollar projects. And a lot of the things that you're talking about, I think she's dealt with. I think all women in construction would deal with. But I also think that at times being a female in the industry also gives her benefits in terms of being able to approach situations that if me or Will got into, it would be completely different. Have you seen that at all?
tradies running your small business can be demanding. You got suppliers you got to work with. You're managing crews. Hell, you're chasing sales. It's a lot to take in. Listen, if you want to grow your business, you got to stop working in it and you got to start working on it. So that's where my friends at Foundation Rescue Supply come in. You're not just getting foundation repair products and waterproofing products and air quality control products. With their nationwide distribution, you're getting a partner who knows how to help you scale. And that's why I use them. The Foundation Rescue Supply team has industry knowledge that'll help make your life easier. You get the tools, the trainings, the systems that you need to move the needle. You want your sales team to close more leads? Done, because they have the proven process for that. You need your crews to work smarter, not harder? Done. Their installation training will get you out there and rocking and rolling in the field. With Foundation Rescue Supply, you're not just buying materials here, you're buying a better business system that they have helped create. And you sell more, you install more, and you grow your team. So the bottom line is this: you get best industry pricing, you get field productivity on track, and you get more revenue out of everybody on your team. So this is your chance to step up, scale up, and thrive. If you are ready to make that happen, head to foundationrescuesupply.com, check out their catalog, and speak to my friends, their team, how you can take beyond the products with your company with Foundation Rescue Supply.
yes. I feel that females tend to let everyone else speak first and then speak last.
What do you, whoa,
And
whoa, 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 whoa.
Shut
I'm
up,
just
Will.
kidding.
I said most of the time, to be clear. And he's not even listening.
I'm listening.
Okay. So I don't even know how many jobs that is, Drake. Is that like 17 now? I don't know. But I can only really speak for myself and the other few female business owners that are in our network. It's always good to just hear all sides before reacting and also taking emotion out of it, which is ironic because, again, usually females are inherently thought to be more emotional, but we are able to control our anger more. And so, where I think men usually hit a hurdle or an issue with another person, whether it's a customer, an employee, anyone, there's a dominance where there has to be some type of alpha on top. Women don't usually come with that. And that's how I've been able to come to those situations and not come across like I'm threatening. But again, I think it's all in the relationships. So again, I don't deal with it as much. Vesta's made a name for herself, and I don't have to prove myself every time I walk into a room when we have the history that we do. So for women just entering construction, it's just about finding those mentors to build up and learn lessons from, because we've all made mistakes, whether male or female, and that will just help them build their own brand to not have to overcome sexism in construction.
Well, and I see a lot of the young ladies that come through the construction programs outperform a lot of the males, especially because they're not afraid to ask questions or show that they might not know what's going on, right? Where some of the young men in those programs, even if they don't know the answer, they're not going to ask for help or ask a question because they're afraid of being embarrassed. And they are just they're hurting themselves by not asking for help. And the young ladies in the program understand that they're there to learn, and they do such a better job at it.
Well, and Sydney, when was the defining moment where it was just light bulb, like, and the gear shifted for you in the last, 8 years of running Vesta? Being able to ask for help and give direction and take the lead.
So the first time it happened, it was our first year of Vesta, and I can't remember what problem it was. It was definitely in the accounting year, but I spoke to Darlene, who was kind of a financial coach at that time, and she said to me, sometimes the hardest step is asking for help. That has always stuck with me, and just making sure that you are humble enough to admit when you don't know and to ask for help, but also like it's a balance, because you also have to be confident enough and stand behind your decisions. That's why core values and mission statements and those things that drive decision making are so beneficial, because if you don't have that groundwork, every decision is so much harder. But when you know where you want to go or what kind of company you want to be, you don't have to sit there and think about it that much or ask for that much input, because you know exactly where you want to take the business.
So it's interesting because I want to shift a little bit
Okay.
from this like division in leadership more so just specifically to leadership, because how many people do you have in the leadership team and what's the makeup of it?
So we have 7 now. Myself as CEO, integrator. Ashley Herrera is marketing. Carrie Yanchik is customer care. We have our 2 branch managers, Brian and Aaron, Adam Yeagley in accounting, and then Sarah Carr just joined for HR management. I represented that seat for a long time, but then Sarah Carr was just elevated. So now, for the first time, we have a predominantly female leadership team at Vesta. It's always been even. Like, we've always had more females than a normal foundation repair company, but that was an exciting chapter to enter into.
And do you think that's a function of you being as involved in the organization as you have been?
Well, no. I think even if Will was still there, it would be evenly split. We look for the right people, right seat for our company. And it's less about anything else and more that they're going to add to the culture. They're going to help take care of customers, live our core values. And so we probably give more opportunity, but that we're just a people first company. So that's no matter what, if I'm female or Will's running it as a male, it's the best people for the job.
Yeah, it's funny, Terry. The first time and by the way, I love my people and my employees, but the first time I heard people first, I was like, no, that's the wrong word. You mean profit, right? Sydney has done a good job of, hey, you take care of the people, then they take care of the profits, and yada yada, and then they tell their friends, and then they tell their friends, and then they tell their friends. But so I want to hear this, Sydney, because it's weird. It's kind of flip flop. I think you remember back in the day, like I was digesting business books left and right, but now it's flip flopped, and you have like left me behind on our Audible library. Mm-hmm. And I want to lead a little bit into your capacity dealing with 7 managers, because I think a lot of people deal with that. But in the recent years, in managing an organization at the level that you are, you obviously have taken off with like top 3 books from a leadership perspective. You know, in the last few years, what would be the top 3 books you'd recommend for just leadership or business in general?
The top 3 books for me are The Responsibility Process from Christopher Avery, and that is even outside of business leadership, just leadership in general. It was a wonderful book. Crucial Conversations always helped me communicate better with other people,
that's a good one.
Including Will and the children.
Yeah, actually, Crucial Conversations was one of those books where Sydney was trying to communicate really well with me, and I'm like, I don't want to talk like this. And then I read the book. I was like, damn, that's actually pretty good. I should have read this like 3 months ago.
Well, me and Carrie went through 6 Working Geniuses together, and that's helped so much.
Yeah. Yeah, we have two.
And I was going to say the third book is really anything by Patrick Lencioni. The Working Genius, Ideal Team Player, Five Dysfunctions of a Team, they're all impactful. And so anything by Patrick Lencioni, I will read.
Well, and I think, I don't know if it's the same for you guys, but a lot of what we've gone through in business and becoming better business partners has made us better partners in our marriage as well. And you know, it's much easier to build that business relationship at times and have that payoff in the house or at home.
Well, let me rewind. Sydney has a hall pass, and his name is Patrick Lencioni. Have you ever seen those scenes,
No.
Terry, where the women are screaming at the Beatles? Anytime Pat Lencioni is talking somewhere, so look at her blushing right now.
That is
She's
not
like,
true.
I saw Patrick Lencioni speak twice, and in the front of the room was Sydney. And she has a few signed books. She has a video that she reminds that she will show me, and it's Pat Lencioni going, Sydney from Vesta is the best, and she just glows. And I'm like, I'm so screwed if that guy ever
He's not a
decides to
hall
pick up
pass.
something. He is not. But let's dovetail into this. Working Genius. This is so funny because I am high, galvanizing, and inventive, meaning I like to rally people up and try to solve problems that don't need to be solved. And Sydney is high discerning. So we have found that those personality types do not. Oh, by the way, our working frustration is tenacity.
Both of us.
So I'm glad, Sydney, that you're in our living room there. Because if you could go around the corner, Terry, you will see all of the laundry is washed. It is folded. It is not going to be put away ever. It will never be put away. We also, if we want to talk about taking a trip, I invent up all these locations we need to go, get all excited, and Sydney finds the problems in the schedule and where we shouldn't go and what she read on Reddit. And So I love this. Sydney's solution was we're just going to find the budget. We're going to push it to a travel agent, and it's done. So,
But that's the thing is you two recognize through that Working Genius process what your strengths and weaknesses are. And then like for me and Carrie, like some of the things that I hated doing that would get pushed to her, she actually enjoyed. And I'm sitting back here feeling bad about it. Like, oh, she really shouldn't be finishing that and checking boxes and all that. But that's what she loved to do. And it gave her joy and I got out of it. I mean, it was huge for us.
Something, and this is actually a funny story, kind of leading into leading a team as well. Like Will said, our working frustration is tenacity. So we hate finishing things or getting things done. Will and I did a love language assessment just for fun one weekend.
easy, Terry.
And
Keep it PG.
Will's love language is acts of service. And so now if Will asks me to put away the laundry, which does get put away now, it's not that I'm doing it to finish laundry. I'm doing it to help Will, who I love. And so if you take the task that you need to do, that you hate doing, and turn it around on the why you're doing it, it does help with those situations. And I actually had my leadership team do love language as well, because we're in a relationship with our management team, and everyone laughed and they said, this is stupid. Why are we doing a love language? Let's just pray. No, like Brian Lewis, love language isn't physical touch, and all of these jokes, of course. But what it showed to us is that we were missing fulfilling people. So if their love language is acts of service or words of affirmation, even in a business relationship, you can turn like just a regular meeting into quality time, and it helps fill everyone's fulfillment, and they just feel more connected as a team and bonded. And so it was actually a wonderful time, and we have just continued to grow our relationships with each other since that. We did that in April. So
But now, hold on real quick, Terry, just so we are aware of what's going on. This is interesting because I know we've talked a lot about, I'm not involved in the business, but have you had anybody from the university take the Working Genius assessment with your team, like Evan or anybody?
I've given it to a few people. I don't know if anyone has. I actually pushed it to all my students.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. And one question, I just sitting here, have you guys had the kids go through it? Because I almost wonder what it would be like to have like my oldest child, who is 8 years old, by the way, to go through it, and it might help us understand like how to work with her a little bit better.
I'm more worried about your younger one, Terry. The younger one, Willow, is the one I'm worried about.
Yeah, I'm
No,
not
she's
worried
gonna
about.
be perfect.
They're both going to be something.
Troy has taken the Working Genius. I had him take it when he started working with us at Vesta. Evan has not, but Patrick Lencioni came up with I believe he's done one for high school students, and they are working on one for younger children as well.
Wow, she really does know what he's up to. You do have to watch out, Will.
Yeah, well, yeah, I'm going to take that one too because that's more my level. But I know we've talked a lot about like I'm not as involved in the business, and for those listening, I want to be very clear. Like even Sydney, to this degree, is like working on the business, not in the business, which is very, very important to understand. So like there are times because of our contrast of our working geniuses that I will be tagged into the business to help jumpstart things when it's needed. And it's funny, I don't get made savvy or pervy to those conversations, Sydney, but in your leadership meeting, when is there a button on the wall that says, oh, is there a will signal? It's just a
There is
Coors
no-
Light bottle in the sky. Like, because our team is very discerning. Like our leadership team has a lot of discernment. So if it makes it through the discerners, then there's a fucking problem, right? But so what's the threshold there where you start leaning on the high galvanizers, not just me, but as a team where it's like, whoa, we need the high galvanizers?
Our team is a little bit more even and equal now, so we don't have as many discerners, or they're not making up such a large portion of our team. But I would say whenever it's a cultural situation or we are getting ready to present something new to the entire company, there's always this, we need Will. And then I usually have to ask permission to schedule him to come by the office. And really, I have to prep everything. He just shows up, waves, shakes hands, kiss babies,
Oh no!
and then I make sure he leaves without setting the building on fire.
I mean, it almost sounds like we're going to say you're bringing in the talent, but instead of the talent, you're bringing in Will. I mean, it's almost like you're getting it in there, right?
Well, I can't remember, Sydney. There's a line on the different personality types of working genius, and the top line, I think it's the WGTs, maybe. What are they called?
IE,
Oh.
or it's a
No,
widget.
I know it spells widget, but there's disruptive personalities, and then there's harmonious personalities.
No, it's really proactive and reactive. Well, I guess it's disrupting but not harmonious.
I'm a disruptive personality, Terry.
Yes.
Yes.
I don't think he
And
needs an assessment to know that.
No.
Hey, actually, hold on. Like, let's talk about this. We did have to work home a few weeks ago. I was asked to come run a sales meeting recently, and we had to have a little powwow on the back patio. Like, hey, I need you to come run the sales meeting. And I'm like, all right, are you sure this is what I'm going to go over? And I'm going to disagree with some of your policies that you've already set in place. So it kind of break that down to make sure I wasn't untangling processes that a well-paid leadership team is paid to do. And just a little bit of voicing her opinion helped filter me pretty well before I went in there and threw matches on an entire sales team.
But I can't, he's a stallion, so I give him a fence to run within. I can't be like, you are black and white, you can only say these things, because it's Will and he won't listen. So if I just basically give him 3 things he can't do, then he's more likely to listen. So
You say stallion,
That's
but-
all I heard through that
Yeah.
entire thing.
but the only thing I'm picturing is donkey from Shrek.
No, you mean ass.
Yes.
Oh man.
No.
Will's letting me buy new stuff for the house every time I give him a compliment on this.
Oh,
so.
that's how it is. You had to
What?
get.
He doesn't know that yet. But
Oh,
I can be
good.
like, remember when I called you a stallion on your podcast?
Oh, yeah. No. I can just see that. Like, he's not going to live that one down. So, Sydney, to get back to the idea of building that leadership team that you have built, right? And how your organization is flourishing under your leadership. What is it like to build that team? And what have you done different than Will has done to make it a success?
By the way, this is funny because we have a very great manager on our team that I refused to hire. And he is probably one of our best people, and that
He
was
is one of
Sydney's
our
decision.
best.
So we have very differentiating views on how to develop a leadership team. But Sydney has created a world-class team, and a lot of people struggle with that around the country.
And just to be clear, it's not like it has not been perfect. So this has been a journey. And a lot of teams, you think, especially when you're reading books, you think you just go through the process and you find that perfect person and life's wonderful. And it's so not. We are people, we are lives, we have emotions. If it wasn't for people management, it would be easy. And I believe what's made the current leadership team different, although I have really respected and loved every person that's ever been a leader or worked at Vesta. What's different about this team now is that we can have those really difficult conversations with each other. We can call each other out. And before, I believe everyone was too scared to hurt someone's feelings. And I also feel that a lot of people didn't say something, if one gear's off track, and the managers weren't saying, hey, this is off track, because they were off track too. And so it was this, let's just laugh and get along and have fun and then never talk hard about business. And it wasn't really until about a year and a half ago that we stepped into that awkward together. And it was probably 5 or 6 different, very difficult conversations, most likely one-on-one with me and that person, and sometimes as a group with all of us, where we went into that awkwardness. And it was hard, but we came out on the other side stronger. And everyone has to go through that. And I think even going through difficult times together as a team bonds you better. But I know, for instance, that my team is going to do what's right for the company, and they can trust me to make the best decisions for the company. And we can have those really difficult conversations. And then what's really different from Will, which isn't a bad thing, to be clear, like Will just saw the best in people and wanted to give them chance after chance after chance. And while that is a wonderful philosophy, and again, it's helped us hire a lot of great people, if numbers aren't being hit, go be friends with these people. We can't run a business profitably and have it be 100-year-old company if we aren't making that profit in order to grow and buy new equipment and hire more people. We're not just here to have a good time. We are here to make sure that we are fulfilling our promise to our company, our other teammates, and our customers. So,
What's interesting about that, Terry, is because I'd be like, man, I see the best in people, and yada yada. I just want to see them succeed. Then I come home, I chug a beer, I go scream out in the backyard, I kick it over the trash can.
no, that's not. Will's being dramatic, but Will saw the best of people when the people didn't see the best of themselves, and you can't make people stay if they're not happy and they don't think they can do it. So
I know I am guilty for that. I'm guilty for giving a reprimand, and somehow they leave inspired, and then they don't
'Cause you're
remember what the hell the
Galvanizer.
reprimand was. But you mentioned something, Sydney. I want to be very clear, because I see companies all across the country, and you're way better at this than me. They struggle to create healthy conflict in their team, whether or not it's 3 or 4 or 5 people. So I know it's taken a long time, but what were the big breakthroughs that you created in your team that said, no, we're going to start breaking those walls down and we're going to have some healthy conflict?
that's why the responsibility process is one of my top 3 books, if not the best book, because it was after I read that book. And again, there's ladders of responsibility, and responsibility is different than accountability in the English language. A lot of times those are used as synonyms and they're not. So, of course, responsible adult, we vote, we pay our bills, pay our taxes, but accountability is, being held accountable for a result, whether good or bad. In the responsibility process, when you hit a wall or a hurdle, there's always this natural progression of responsibility. So, and I'll use Vesta as an example because again, it's not always been perfect, but you can either at the very start, you have to acknowledge there is a problem. A lot of people deny that there's a problem. And then the first level is you want to blame someone else. And I have done that so much. Like it's that person's fault, or it's, because of who used to sit in the seat or whatnot. And and it's just a natural urge to blame someone else for the issue. And then the next ladder up is justify. And I know we've all heard that, especially in construction. Well, it's just the market, it's just the economy or the tariffs or where we are, things are just different here. And you justify why you can't do something. And then you move out of that, and that's where it goes to kind of personal responsibility and taking responsibility for things. But we actually step into shame first. Like we admit that we're the problem. And that's where kind of that imposter syndrome will pipe up, is that, okay, there's a problem. It's my fault. I'm not good at this job and I can't do it. And people can actually sit here and alternate between shame and quit, say they need to quit. They can't do this job. And it's a spiral, and you just kind of go back and forth and back and forth. And I have been there, and it's not a great place to be as a leader at all. And then you have to step out of that, and you can either quit and go get a different job, or you understand there is a problem. It is your responsibility that problem exists, but you are 100% responsible for getting out of it. So, and this was part of my journey of Will not being around, because he could come in and strap on his cape that he always had and, save me from having to learn sales or marketing and get us out of whatever problem we are. And he wasn't coming. It wasn't that he didn't want to, it was just that was not the rules now. And so I had to step into that and be like, okay, we're in this problem. I don't need Will to fix it. I can fix it. I don't need anyone else. And that was kind of the tipping point for me and it was about 1.5 years ago. And part of that was, and I made my entire team read that book, and we actually went through an entire exercise together. So no matter what problem we're hitting, we take responsibility for it. And it's like, okay, well, you have this problem. What are you going to do to get out of it? And how can I help you get out of it? So it's not just you fix it, I don't want to hear about it. It's, we have this problem. It's your responsibility to fix it. How can I help? And that's just the language that we use as a team. And it's really helped us get through some difficult times. And now I think the teams are taking better accountability, and we're still working on driving that ownership down to the front line, because they're the ones that are doing all the extremely hard work, fulfilling promises to customers. And we want them to own those decisions just as we would, because in certain situations, they're going to make better decisions than we will because they're out there. So that's been probably the biggest turning point in the last 16 to 18 months at Vesta.
Now, Sydney, as you stepped in more in or developed in that leadership role, how have you been able to understand when you have a key manager hit a ceiling or hit their capacity? How do you identify that, and how do you correct that or move forward with them?
So everyone has a ceiling. I think it's different, and correct me if I'm wrong. So if someone is hit a capacity ceiling where they need knowledge in order to get through it, we try to identify those a lot earlier. And so at Vesta, we have our expectations. We have our non-negotiables for every department. And we use those non-negotiables rather than like an SOP. Like, it's not you have to do these steps in perfect order every single time. We are not Chick-fil-A, it's not that type of environment. What we do have are non-negotiables. So Vesta is 100% concerned with the result. We want to make sure the customer is satisfied, the home's taken care of, and whatever problem we were there to fix is fixed. And we give freedom to get from point A to point B, but there are non-negotiables, and that comes with customer service non-negotiables. You will call when you're on the way. You will give updates. You will provide excellent, remarkable experience. Also, notes, reporting, all of that. So if someone needs knowledge, we try to find it before it becomes a huge problem. And if not, we're always training.
Okay.
If someone is below that bar of expectation, it's our responsibility to make sure that we have trained them enough to get there. And sometimes it's a capacity question, but very rarely do people hit that capacity after we've done the job of training. But if everyone's like in my team, if they are performing at expectations, we're also doing a growth plan. Like, how do we get to the next level? Where do you see yourself in 5 years, 10 years? And what can we start learning about now to get you there? Next Wednesday, I'm actually hosting a financial training. This was specifically designed for a new production manager that we have, but I'm opening it up to everyone in the company. So we have foremen that are going to come. We have sales people that are going to come, a few admin staff. And it's like, have you ever wondered how money moves through a business? And it's just an hour and a half long class, and it was open to anyone that would be interested. And so will they ever use that information? I have no idea. I hope so. But it's making sure that you're talking to your people and asking questions and inspecting what you expect out of it to overcome that. But again, you try to find it before they hit that ceiling. Burnout capacity is a very different thing, and you have to be really plugged in a relationship with your people to be able to spot it before they do. And it usually comes, if they come in a little bit late, you can really see it on their face. Like, I can tell very clearly if my team is reaching burnout. And I have forced vacations. Our controller, I was like, no, you have worked all weekend for the past 4 weeks. You do not come in on Monday. And I make that call. I made Brian schedule, like, his to-do that week was to schedule his trip to London with his wife, because he kept like, we want to go to London. We want to go to London. And I'm like, okay, this week you're going to actually book it. And it was for the next year. And so it's just about being people smart enough to be able to spot that in other people. So
What I hear through this, Terry, is so funny because I want to be clear. It's like, wait a minute, you have managers that want to work more? And most people struggle because they have the other one, but it's taken, 5 years probably to build the leadership core that it is now, right?
well, and to be clear, there are always people that, love their work, or they feel responsible enough to be like, no, I need to work through the evening or whatnot to get things done, especially in accounting. You are so deadline driven in that year. So, but if you as a leader are, and this was actually from Craig Rochelle, my new favorite business leadership podcast person, he said that if you are not leading a team and you have talks with some about working less and some about working more, you are not managing your team properly. Like, you should be having those exact conversations going on at the same time, because it's about little small changes. So I don't want everyone to be working 80 hours a week. That's not sustainable. I also don't want everyone working 30 hours a week. So there's a balance. So
Well, one thing that you've done really well, and this goes back to like inspecting what you expect. You mentioned this before. And I don't feel like when I'm asked about this that I articulate it very well, but you in the past year have been successful at executing a mystery shopper program for a construction company. And we think of that with grocery stores, fast food, all of that, which is wild. But take us through how you instituted a mystery shopper program in a construction company and what the results were after, because it's pretty cool.
Well, and we kind of did two different ones. So the exact mystery shopper program, it was actually done with our vendor support work. So it was a lot of their help. We tried to do it ourselves, and like, customer care knows our voice, they know our phone number. And so it was really difficult to try to self-implement. So I would recommend companies use an outside party to be that group that calls in, and they literally just have a checklist of everything that you are looking for as a business leader. You know, if you're asking questions, booking an appointment, or a certain cadence to their voice inflection, you can have that person write down notes while they're calling in to book an appointment. Make sure it's canceled before a sales rep goes out, unless you go that far in the process. But it took almost 2.5 months, and we got a lot of great feedback because they'll test like submitting a lead on your website and how quickly the company responded, and emailing in and how quickly you responded, calling after hours. And so it was a lot of information, and it showed us a lot of gaps where we were not creating a remarkable customer experience. And so if you're going to do a full one at that scale, absolutely get outside help, even if it's just a friend group that's not connected with you, but they will need to know. You don't want to just them to blindly do and be like, oh yeah, it was great. No, you want exact feedback of how it went. And because that way, you know where you need to get in there and fix the processes or train the people. Carrie's done an amazing job of fixing all of those holes that we had. The second one we did is Will had a acquaintance actually go through our process and have work done. And that was Jimmy Robertson. And it was wonderful because we just went out to lunch and I got to ask a lot of questions about every step in the process that he went through. And he was phenomenal in showing me that we weren't what I thought was being delivered to customers. And that was probably almost 3 years ago that Jimmy did that. So that was really when I started jumping in and inspecting the business. So once a quarter, me as CEO, I will sit with customer care and I will answer phones and book appointments. I will go out on ride-alongs with the inspection team. I will go out and install with the production team. I will sit in check-ins with managers. I will listen to interviews and recorded phone calls, and all of these have forms to make sure that we're looking for everything that is important to us, and I'm giving that feedback. And again, just making very small corrections to stay the course. It's hard work, but I dedicate every quarter that I sit in every seat in our company.
Well, Sydney, I think, and I've told this to Will multiple times, it's nice to be with a Blake that is well-spoken, intelligent, and just a generally nice person. I mean, I get that so rarely. I deal with him all the time. As we close out, and I know did you ask this question last time, Will, to her? The final question, the closeout question?
Yeah, I think we did.
All
And
right.
I hate that question. I think it's such a stupid question.
Well, here, I've got something I want to share that I think will be and maybe you can just explain this scenario to us as your biggest mistake or recent mistake, Sydney. Can you please describe to us what's going on in these pictures and what this scenario was? Because for somebody that's so respected as a business leader, I'm seeing a lot of disrespect in these pictures. And I'm curious, what's going on? Describe the situation and why this is now your top regret.
So it's not too much of a regret, but our Oklahoma City branch surpassed 700 Google reviews, which was a very big milestone for us. And as we were leading up to 700, we were trying to get the team motivated without blowing our budget, and rather just giving money. Goes back to love language and quality time. So I told the branch that if they hit 700 Google reviews this week, that anyone that was listed in the 5-star review would be able to pie the manager of their choice in the face next Monday. And so over the weekend, I made all of the pies. I had to make 10 pies. Luckily, I was very careful in my wording because the same crew got a bunch, there were 3 crews that all got a bunch of reviews. And so instead of having to make 20 pies, I just made 10. And Brian Lewis, who is facing the right back there, he was trying to blame everyone for all the problems. So that's why my picture's up there, because he was like, Sydney is the one that buys your truck. So if you have any problems with the trucks, be sure to know it's Sydney's fault trying to get people to pie me.
Mind you, hold on. I want to make very clear, Terry, you know that oldest son we talked about that was so
I was,
nice, and we love. That's him. That's this one right here.
yeah. I was gonna
Yeah.
say I made it through 9 pies, and no one pied me. I think Adam had the most. I was shocked someone pied Sarah and Carrie, honestly, because they're just so sweet. But everyone and I was completely clean. I was having a wonderful hair day. I was super happy. And then the last pie came, and that was Troy, our oldest, and he got to choose me. And not only did Troy pie me in the face, but Brian came in and put one of the older ones in my hair. And so I got it worse than anybody. But spoiler alert, I don't know if it was the whipped cream or the vanilla pudding. My hair has never been softer. So I'm not saying to use it as a hair mask. I'm just saying my hair's never been softer. So
And is that when Troy got written out of the will? Shortly after that?
that is when Troy got written out of the will. Just
Yep.
kidding. I would never do that. I love him. And
Well,
that
just
was
to
a
be
lot of
clear,
fun.
that exact case study, because I hear this all the time. It's like we incentivize getting Google reviews, and nobody wants to get Google reviews. So I did some homework before our podcast today, knowing that those pictures would be shared. Sorry, I did not get your permission, Sydney. I counted, and correct me if I'm wrong, 43 Google reviews in the month of May. And then the earlier month, I counted upwards of 50-something Google reviews. But, I mean, those are some real results, and it only cost you how much at the grocery store?
Wait, are you talking about both companies together? Because,
No, just Oklahoma branch.
that's more than I thought we had. So I was like,
Yeah,
okay.
I counted them up online this morning, and it's like, man, I
It was
can't
30
give guys money to get
Yeah.
reviews. And then all of a sudden, whoa, how much money did it cost you at the grocery store?
$35.
These guys, Terry, were more motivated to cream a manager in the face with a pie than getting 20 extra bucks for getting a Google review.
So we did a campaign where your leadership team would have to kiss a pig if you voted for it or you got that person. So we could institute the same thing. We have baby calves, and I know where I can get a goat. We could have a animal kissing contest with your
Yeah.
favorite manager.
Well, the debate is still out there because we could definitely introduce that at Vesta. However, my number one experience that I want to put my management team through to create bonding, I know Sydney knows what it is. She's already shaking her head, is my goal. I do believe that life, altering scenarios, bonds people together. And I want to throw all of my leadership team out of an airplane and take them skydiving. To this day, Sydney will not let me. She will not let me do it. So the best thing that she's done is let them get hit in the face with pies. And we've had stand-up comedy nights, which can lead to a different episode. But either way, baby, glad to have you as a guest today. Thank you for sharing your insights. Terry, thanks for keeping it mild. You guys didn't take it too hard on me today, loosened up. You guys are good. So, but to all of you guys out there, thank you guys for listening. We'll look forward to seeing you guys on another episode of Beers with Contractors. Talk soon.
See ya.
And that's a wrap for today's episode of Beers with Contractors. We hope you enjoyed our chat as much as we did. Before we say our final goodbyes, a friendly reminder. Beers with Contractors encourages responsible drinking. If you choose to enjoy a beverage during our time together, please do so in moderation and only if you're of legal drinking age in your country or state. Furthermore, the advice and insights shared in this podcast are for informational purposes only. Always consult with professionals and experts in your field, and be sure to follow local laws and regulations regarding licensing and permits. We're here to help, entertain, and inspire, but your safety and compliance are important. So, as you head out into the world of construction and contracting, remember to build responsibly and make decisions that stand the test of time. Thanks for joining us today. We'll catch you on the next episode of Beers with Contractors. Until then, cheers to your success.